Hi, my name is Adam Fedesky. Pronouns are he, him, his. I am a restoration project coordinator with Wildlands Restoration Volunteers, and thank you so much for coming to our new leader open house so that we can talk about the different trainings that we offer as part of Wildlands University, and also to kind of talk a little bit about those leader roles, answer questions you might have, outline requirements for the training, and yeah, just get people excited about this coming season. We always love having a new group of leaders come in and join us in a variety of capacities. And real quick I know many of you have been on our projects. If you have not, I definitely encourage you to look through our website, learn a little bit about us. But the real quick overview is that we're a nonprofit, and we really want to, with every project we do, heal the land and build community. And we recently revised and shortened our mission statement to be more direct towards that. So it is now building diverse communities that care for the land. And that really is a thing we want to do with every individual project and just overall as an organization. On every project that we do, the staff lead, which is abbreviated as a WHISTLE or WRV staff liaison, will always do an intro at the beginning of a project, give people kind of an overview of what's happening, and kind of help connect our goal of healing the land and building community with the project we're doing that day. So something we do as part of every project is at the beginning, usually sometimes during lunch or something, we share what is called a land acknowledgement. And this is a way for us to kind of recognize our place in, as we're working to heal the land, also healing our connections to people who have been connected to this land in the past, present, and future. And so this is not our like official land acknowledgement statement. It is a thing we kind of, every staff member will share different things. And so I am basing what I'm saying here today off of the Longmont area, but this can change based on where our project is taking place. So we recognize that the lands that we work on today were and still are the home to the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, Ochethi, Shikoan, and many other indigenous nations. And whether we're aware of it or not, we have benefited from their removal from this land and the ongoing justices that continue to be committed against them. And we feel that recognizing this history, we can begin to rectify these injustices and work to develop a greater connection with the land, as well as these people for whom the land is so integral to life. And so it helps to ground us in where we are, since healing the land is so important to everything that we do. We always like to kind of start off, and I felt like for our leaders, we often say this at the beginning of projects, but can help for people who prefer to read things to see that. So thank you for being a part of that part of our mission. So like I said, heal the land, build community is kind of our overview of everything that we aim to do. This is a quick infographic showing our general program areas. So you can be involved in a variety of these depending on which role or roles you train in, but we have rivers, seeds, invasive weeds. We do a lot of invasive weed removal, healthy forests, youth and family programs, and sustainable trails. And then in the center, which is certainly our largest area, as habitats, which involves a lot of different things. So some of this, there's overlaps between the different program areas, but usually every project is going to be categorized as one of these predominantly when you're signing up on Volunteer Hub. So definitely check out that more if you want to learn about those. Like I said, all that info is on our website. But what are we talking about tonight? Thanks for asking. So we were going to, like I said, cover an overview of Wildlands University, which is the name that we give to kind of all of our spring new leader trainings. So we'll talk about the options that we have in that, We will also talk about the available leader roles. We're going to cover skilled volunteer roles. So I put those both up front because I think it's helpful to know. So we will talk about leader roles, which are going to be involved in kind of the planning and execution of any given project. The skilled volunteer roles can include things like project photographer, our backcountry and front country first aid volunteers, sawyers. We also have, last year we did a training for llama wranglers. So we really do have an eclectic variety of volunteer roles, and the difference being that the skilled volunteer roles, usually you're either coming in with a level of experience or you're attending a training specific to that one component, but you may not be leading groups of volunteers in that capacity. And we'll kind of talk about our other trainings that we have planned for this year, some of which don't have dates yet, but at least we can make you aware of all of those and answer what questions we can. So with that, let's get into Wildlands University. And I need to turn off my breaks. The thing reminding me to take breaks on my screen. So Wildlands University, these are going to start off with kind of our requirements and expectations for all leaders. So this is a thing that we ask for leaders to do every year. We have a couple things that fall under that build community aspect. So all leader roles will be asked to do these two parts. So we have our intro to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is going to be in about 2.5 weeks on a Sunday from 9:30 to noon. That is going to be online, and we're working with this awesome facilitator named Parker, and they've been doing these trainings with us for years and are such a great human to facilitate. Really not assuming any level of knowledge or experience with this, and kind of helping to facilitate discussions to, so it's not a passive, it is very interactive. We're also very excited about Leadership 101. So when we officially started doing a lot more formalized training, it was in right around 2018, 2019. We had all of these visions for what we wanted the training program to be including for leaders each year. And then, as you know, 2020. And so we moved a lot of the leadership skills and that component to an online curriculum. Partnering with Volunteers for Outdoor Colorado, we're a part of something called the Outdoor Stewardship Institute, or OSI. And that is, it is great. It is great that we were able to offer that training online. However, we felt like we were losing part of that opportunity to start building community with one another and really understanding that component of our projects, because that is integral. We could not be running over 150. I think we've done over 180 projects the last couple of years. That's not possible unless we have a really strong, invested, and connected community. So the Leadership 101 will give us a chance to explore different activities to bond and reflect on our own leadership capacities. We will also have a session during that day focusing on having tough conversations. So if you've seen that on our calendar, that will be included as part of the Leadership 101, and that's a chance for us to practice identifying and responding to microaggressions, which is a thing that will be talked about in the intro to DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion training. So those two parts really are integral to the build community part of our mission, and healing the land. The two components that will apply for everyone is there will be a field day for the role or roles of your choice. We're asking that people don't sign up for more than 2 trainings, just because we want you to be able to go through the process of experiencing the training and mentoring with leaders, experienced leaders, and then getting a chance to step into that leader role during this season. So depending on the role you're training in, will depend on the amount of mentoring that might be involved with that. Also, I put a note on there. There will be an additional online session for anyone training to be a crew leader in trails. In part, that is because there is a lot of technical information and techniques that otherwise involve everyone doing a lot of standing around and looking at things out in the field. So covering that online gives us a chance on those field days to really get out there, reference things that were talked about during that training, but spend more time actually, picking up tools, getting hands dirty, and getting a chance to practice all of the technical skills out there. So those are all things that we are asking for as the expectations for leaders. Like I said, skilled volunteer roles, this does not all apply. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. But I know this was a question that has come up in the past and through some emails, so I wanted to proactively try and answer this for as many people as possible. And that is that we have fees associated with the leader training. And we do this as a way to help us offset some of the costs of our training materials and the food that we provide for everyone on their field day. So for these fees, there are, if you go in to register, and if you've already registered, you probably received a confirmation message referencing this, but the regular and discounted, wanted to cover that real quick. Regular is if you are new to WRV, but you're really interested in jumping into that leader capacity. We ask for you to pay that. You might say, like, where did these numbers come from? Part of it is that they are processed through the same database as our donors. And so these kind of awkward numbers help our finance team to flag, like, hey, this person must be paying for Wildlands University. And it helps us keep track of everyone's progress in completing that. So we do want to emphasize that if you are training in 2 roles, do not pay twice. We are super grateful for you wanting to pursue those multiple things. And we really want to, our main goal is to involve people as much as possible. And so, like I said, the discounted rate applies there. It says if you're a WRV member or donor, or you volunteered at least 2 or more times with us on projects last year. And as it says on there, you can also be reimbursed that difference after you lead on 2 projects if you're interested. That said, if you do not need that money back, our training program can benefit from that additional part as a donation. So the photographer training, because it is less involved, there is only the 1 field day, so the fees for that are smaller. And we do have scholarships available. Really, we don't want cost to deter anyone. We're just trying to make it so that we can, I've been putting a lot of time into thinking about and planning for training this spring, and I'm very excited about it. This is kind of the first year that I am taking a larger role in leading it. So I'm not going to pretend like I have the answers to all of the questions, but yeah, I am very open to feedback, to answering questions, to talking through things with people. But yeah, as far as the scholarships with that, when you go to register for a training, you can just reach out directly to me, and pretty much if, a scholarship is like, hey, I'm in school and not making money right now, like, you don't need to provide any sort of documentation for it or anything. Just reach out to me and we can make sure that that is properly addressed. Before I go into talking about the leader and skilled roles, I wanted to give a chance if anybody had any questions. I haven't really been paying attention to the chat. Looks like there's a couple of things. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for responding to that. But is there, I'll just stop real quick. Does anyone have any questions about any of that as far as the logistics part of Wildlands University before we start talking about the leader roles? We will have time for a question and answer at the end too, if you'd rather wait until then. Awesome, great. That was just a chance for me to take a sip of my tea then. Uh, we get the presentation back up and keep crushing through it, covering the stuff. So this slide shows some lovely icons that are helping to highlight some, but not all of the roles. So as it says on there, like trained volunteer leaders are really integral and the backbone of everything we do with WRV. I've had the opportunity to work with several other organizations and working with volunteers. And when I came to WRV, it was such a refreshing change because volunteers really are empowered to lead and help control, you know, the direction and capacity of what we're able to do as an organization. A big part of this is that every single project that has more than probably 8 to 10 volunteers has one or more leaders on it. So if you have been on a project with more than 8 people, you have likely met one or more of our crew leaders. So every project, we have crew leaders to help with providing, you know, I'll go into what crew leaders do in a moment, but crew leader, cook team, tool manager, technical advisor, and project leader are all what we consider leader roles. So we'll talk a bit more about each of those 5. And then I also put on there Sawyer, photographer, and first aid, which are some of our skilled volunteer roles. So we will have trainings for those as well. The photographer training is part of Wildlands University. First aid, we will be offering a wilderness first aid course, probably sometime around May. We're kind of trying to finalize a lot with our project schedule for the season before we schedule that. But if you have prior first aid training, you can become a backcountry or front country first aid volunteer without attending any additional training. We'll talk through, you know, kind of the process for that in a little bit. But no experience needed, though it is helpful with some of them, which I will talk about now. All right, so crew leaders, there are 3 different capacities in which you can train to be a crew leader. And that is in ecological restoration, in trails, or in native seeds. So each of them will have different field days. We do on the schedule have 2 field days for ecological restoration, or eco-resto, we sometimes abbreviate that as. We have 2 field days for trails. Those are all taking place in March. And then the field day for crew leaders in native seeds will be taking place in mid-June because there are not really seeds to collect in March as much as there are in June. So, but regardless of what project area you would be training in, all crew leaders are leading small groups of volunteers on projects and really helping their crew get oriented to the safety that's associated with the project, and helping us to complete the project activities in a safe, accurate, and fun manner. So there is really, with building community being so integral to everything we do, crew leaders are really helping to cultivate that inclusive and empowered team for the duration of the project and being their point person. And that means just in part that, like, whether someone has been on 100 projects with us or it is their first project, we want them to feel welcome there and know that their skills are going to be valued and utilized during that project. So with crew leaders being those point people for so many of our crew members, you are very integral to that. Having a familiarity with the project area is helpful, but it's definitely not required. We do have a crew leader orientation for every project. So during that and throughout the technical notes, we provide all of that info to crew leaders. So if you've never planted before, yes, we will cover that in the field day, but there will also be notes that you're provided that give details of that with every project so that you can feel informed about it. And when your crew members are asking you questions, you have an idea of how to answer those. But again, we always have other support on projects, the staff member, and sometimes other parts of the project team. So crew leaders, certainly what we have the most positions for, but we have other roles as well. So we have our tool managers, which these are, and I tried to organize these based on kind of the level of commitment for projects. So crew leaders, for the most part, you're attending the crew leader orientation, reading over those technical notes, and then you're there on the day of the project. And we do, I think I mentioned in the last bullet point, we usually ask crew leaders to come early. Sometimes we do the crew leader orientation on site. Sometimes we do it on Zoom ahead of time. But yeah, participating in that and then being up for debriefing the project afterwards so that we can, as an organization, be evaluating like, how did this project go? What did we do well? What do we want to keep in mind for the future? Kind of the next level up of time commitment. And some of these fluctuate depending on the complexity of a project. But tool managers work with the project team to determine the tool needs and the kitchen needs if it is an overnight. They also help with loading and transporting tools to the project. So they may load up the day before a project or the morning of a project. They manage kind of the tool use on the project. So they may be driving around a truck to help transport tools to different crews, or if a crew has a tool break, they may be bringing them a replacement for that. We're not expecting tool managers to do field repairs of tools, but yeah, familiarity with tool use and maintenance is helpful, but it's not required for that. Moving along, our next role we have is cook team. So this is a very popular position, as you might imagine. This is kind of an overview of things that we ask for the cook team, helping to load up and set up the kitchen before the project begins. Usually for overnights, we will have the cook team and the staff will arrive typically the night before a project starts to kind of get everything set up so that the morning of the project, we can provide breakfast to everybody to kick off before we start working. And we also provide dinner on project days. We do ask crew members to bring their own lunch because we're often out in the field, sometimes far away from the base camp. So there is a lot of meal prep that's done during our Cooks in the Kitchen events. You do not have to be part of the cook team to participate in those, but it can be fun. That said, if you are, you have a lot going on, you can only be there for the project. We take care of a lot of prep and getting that food ready so that you're not having to, handle a bunch of chopping and other stuff out in the field. So at the end of the project, we ask for the cook team to help up with, packing up the base camp and unloading the kitchen gear back at our office. There's not, again, any experience necessary, though having personal experience with cooking is very helpful to this. And there is a picture there of our cook trailer. It is a cornerstone of many of our overnight projects, providing a space for us to store a lot of stuff. All right. Going right along, technical advisors. This is a role that often comes into play when it is a more complex project. So technical advisors, or we abbreviate as TAs, they will provide support before and during the project, collaborating with the staff and the agency partner. They're really involved in helping to determine the work plan. So evaluating, the site during the site visit, helping to design, providing input as far as how do we complete this work? Where can we plant things? What should volunteers be aware of ahead of time? What tools are they going to need? They're thinking through this. They can collaborate with the staff and tool manager to plan for that. But this is one of the roles where I put requires because it helps a lot to have that prior experience with restoration or trail work. That does not have to be with WRV. That could be with an internship or another job or another volunteer role that you have had. But because there is a lot involved with it, not only going to the site visit, but also helping to write up technical notes to help our crew leaders understand what is happening on the project. There's a lot of collaborating with staff, and technical advisors heavily involved in that crew leader orientation, really helping everybody understand what the goal of the project is, what it's going to look like, all of that. So yeah, very, very much more involved. And then I would say one of the roles that is involved kind of the earliest on, definitely, and is the project leader. So project leader is really from the beginning of when the staff lead or whistle is starting to plan for the project leader is involved. So they are helping with project planning, logistics, meeting the goals of the project. They are the main liaison between the staff and the leadership team. Excuse me. So there is a lot of communication done ahead of time. Again, not required, but it is very helpful to have experience specifically with WRV projects, just because you're doing so much before the project even happens. And so knowing what a project looks like helps to kind of like do all of those steps leading up to it. There is a big time commitment before that project day. And we ask for project leaders to participate in the site visit, with helping to coordinate the leadership team, setting up how we're going to run the crew leader orientation, when and where that's going to take place. There's a lot of collaborating with the staff, and we have resources to help both project leaders and technical advisors, because there is a lot involved with those resources to kind of help them work with the staff and keep track of who is doing what. And you might be wondering, as I'm covering all of this, what does a project do if we don't have one of these roles? Oftentimes, that will mean that the staff person is handling these components. So on a more straightforward project, there may not be a need for a technical advisor. Like, for example, removing myrtle spurge, like an invasive weed, we're not going to have a project leader for that. We're not going to have a technical advisor, but crew leaders are still integral to that project succeeding. So yeah, I think that is kind of overview of that. Before we get into our skilled volunteer roles and trainings, I know I just talked a whole bunch right there, so I wanted to stop and see if anyone had any questions to expand upon or clarify, anything related to those leader roles that we just talked about. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie, for just being on it and answering.
Yeah,
I'm just
sure.
seeing like a preview of all the questions and like info you've been providing people. So
yeah, and I know some people were like popping in and out. They might have. Sorry, I have two screens, so I'm looking at the wrong one. So if you missed any of the questions, so some of the big ones that we reviewed, if you happen to be a tool manager or a leader a while ago, you're gonna like train as a crew leader or something now, you don't have to repeat a tool manager training. Also, if you want to do the crew leader training and you're interested in also maybe doing a tool manager and cooks are folks that we can mentor kind of on the job, you could say. If you can't swing going to both of the field days. Yeah, and then just to repeat, if you are going to train in multiple roles, you do not need to pay the fee twice, only once.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning too, I'll get to your question in a moment, Matt, but for crew leaders, it is helpful to participate in the field day for the particular area. So if you're interested in trails or ecological restoration or seeds, that said, you could still mentor with and learn some of that on projects. So let's say, for example, you did the ecological restoration training. That does not prohibit you from signing up as a crew leader on other projects. But that said, if you like haven't done a trail project with us, at least the first time and potentially beyond that, we would pair you with a crew leader who has done trails projects, just because there is a lot of technical skills and practice that goes on in the field day. And so we don't want to, assume if you've done a crew leader in this one project, you're fine for all of them. But it doesn't prevent you from crew leading in like native seeds or something. It just might mean that you're working with another crew leader while you're getting up to speed on some of that. Yes, Matt, see your hand raised.
I actually just signed up. It's nice to meet you guys. I haven't been to a project. I actually currently live in Oklahoma. My question is regarding that and the first four things. I'd actually kind of like to help you guys in the kitchen. I'm a hell of a cook, prior Army. But with me living in Oklahoma, am I going to be able to attend the training? Is it like spread out over weeks or months? I didn't get the dates exact.
Yeah, that's a great question.
And me not being able to get there as often as say somebody that lives locally, am I actually, are you guys, is me wanting to help and come up there when I can. Is that something me even worth looking into the leadership roles for?
Yeah, and I would say like, so like I said, cooks are, on our overnights primarily, and it is a huge help, even if you can only do like a couple of, one or two of the projects over the course of the season, that is hugely helpful. So as far as the schedule, we do have everything up on the website, but I would say like very helpful to, so our leadership 101 day, which is also going to cover that day, will have some kind of role specific stuff. So people training as cooks and tool managers will get kind of a tour of the kitchen gear we have and like kind of being familiar with where everything is located at our office in Longmont. Some stuff is in slightly different spots at our Fort Collins office, but that probably wouldn't, you would likely come to the Longmont office since it's a bit closer. But then the field day for cooks, for example, is that following Saturday, the 11th of March. And
so would it be better for me to plan to come up there and stay for a little while to just knock the training out?
Yeah, if it works for you to be able to, be up for that amount of time, like I think it would be helpful.
No, I'm retired. I'm retired. I don't have anything going on. So
okay, cool. Yeah. And I mean, that I think there's awesome places to explore in the week in between, weather depending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we tried to make all of the trainings for the most part in March. So that way, folks can get a chance to learn all of this, think about how they're going to start applying it. And then our projects for the most part really kind of get underway starting in end of March into April. As far as like overnights, those don't usually start until about mid-June. So overnights are often where we'll have a more full project team where we may have all of those roles that I just mentioned. Our day projects do not have cooks on them. Some of them will have some of the other roles, definitely crew leaders, but so yeah, I think if that helps to kind of like frame it, and I would say, yeah, look at the dates, let me know if questions arise with that, but we're hoping as much as possible that, folks can be there for both the leadership 101 and whatever field day for the role in which they're training. Because it helps to check off a lot of the boxes, and B, so you're getting a chance to meet other people who are training in the same capacity as you. You can, figure out if there's someone you want to sign up with for a project or something. You get a chance to like meet people through those days. And yeah, does that answer your question? Cool. All right. And then Courtney, I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So my main question, I read and saw that you expressed that people wanting to be leaders, they do not have to be experts of a certain field. But as far as training that I want to inquire, will that give us at least a starting base to guide our team to be able to get going on a project? And the reason I'm expressing this so strongly is because I have volunteered on multiple projects at this point, and I have been in situations where my leader was unfortunately unable to delegate tasks. And I lead for my full-time job. And when I volunteer, I just want to be told what to do. But in the same respect, if I have a good enough base of what I'm doing, I am more than happy to teach people to do whatever the activity is. So that being said, I know part of our values is to make sure that we have a strong base, but just want to confirm that this will be part of the training.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, our hope is that between doing kind of the leadership and talking about like, things that are going to involve, like, for example, crew leading, what goes into helping to form that community on your crew, to the field day where we really do dive into those technical skills, and we try to cover a variety of them. That said, I think a lot of the learning and kind of getting up to speed should happen in mentoring with some of our experienced leaders on projects, and every project is going to have different things to it. And so I think, and Rhonda or Mark, you can definitely speak to this as well, but I think over time you get more familiar with like learning things kind of, the week leading up to the project, and yeah, getting familiar with kind of the technical content. But that said, we really do want people to feel generally comfortable in their role before they are graduating as a leader in whatever capacity. And so one of the things we're looking at is really trying to only offer roles for people to train as like a crew leader or a TA or whatever on projects that are going to be more technically involved. In the past, we had done it on pretty much any project. And so somebody who was training to be a leader on a project where we are painting trees to protect them from beavers chewing them down is not maybe going to be as up to speed on like installing erosion matting or something like that. So for that reason, we're trying to be more intentional about what projects people are training on. Yeah, I think at the same time, you're never going to know everything by the time you graduate. And so I think it's getting kind of familiar with that and getting to learn from some people who have been doing it for a while.
Yeah, 100% understand. And thank you for the explanation. I think in my case, I acknowledge that one doesn't have to know all the things, but I feel like delegation is the minimal, at least to get one started. And I would love to be able to lead in a competent enough way to, for example, for planting. If we're planting things, I want to be able to delegate well enough to tell my group where they should go and what they need to do. Or for trail building, I would want to, at a minimum, be able to know what my group should place rock aspects or whatever. That's all.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
didn't get that
absolutely.
in one of my experiences, and maybe it was an exception of the rule. It's quite possible it's an exception of the rule because I've had so many great leaders. But in the same respect, it has inspired me to do this leadership training. So pro and con, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And I think, Courtney, you're hitting on like a really important component of the crew leader role, which is that there is a lot of really delegating and paying attention to everyone on the crew. I will say, like, if you are interested in really your main focus is you want to do the restoration work, then it makes sense to sign up as a crew member on those projects. Crew leader really is orienting everyone to what is happening and kind of checking in with everybody throughout the project to make sure that, you know, people feel comfortable and confident in what they're doing, that you can help answer their questions. And again, you don't have to know all those answers, like especially if you have staff member, an agency partner, a technical advisor, whatever on that. Part of what you do as a crew leader is call over the person who knows more about it, you know, and you like knowing like you don't have to know this, but there is someone here who does, and bringing them into it rather than feeling like you have to make up the answer because you're the leader. I think the more honest we can be with our crews and the volunteers we're working with about like, that's a great question, I want to like get a second opinion on that or something, I think that's better for everybody rather than, you know, trying to fake it until you make it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I wanted to cover a couple other things, but hopefully I'm answering things for the most part. Yeah, Emma.
Oh, so for the photography position, so would you have to go through the leadership 101 and then the diversity inclusion, and then like a field day kind of thing?
That is a great question. I'll actually be covering that on this next slide, but the short answer is no. So yeah, we'll dive into that, but wanted to see for the roles I already covered if people had any other questions. So yeah, I should be able to answer all of that on this next slide, but let me know if, or throw whatever in the chat. Anne-Marie can definitely help answer that too.
All right, thanks.
Cool. All right,
Mark,
I'm gonna hop back over
Adam,
to
Mark might have had something to say. He was waving his hand.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to add what Adam was saying about the role of the crew leader, and it's a multiple part role of, yes, technical knowledge is really helpful in guiding your crew in the work, but we do so many different kinds of projects. It's almost impossible to train our crew leaders up front to become experts in every one of those. And that's why we have technical advisors for that, and people from our partner agencies, our agency contacts on most projects, also to ask questions of, because an important part of the crew leader's role is just managing their crew, keeping them happy, productive, safe. And that's a really important part. And it's half that mission that we have of the building community, of making sure that people are working happily and feeling productive. So it can be intimidating to become a crew leader and feel that you have to know everything, but you don't. You do not have to. WRV will support you as you grow in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Cool. I'm going to hop back over to our presentation so I can finish covering some of our bases here, and then we can make sure there's time for if there's any other questions that pop up. So, all right, so skilled volunteer trainings, going to cover some highlights for this. So one of them, which is part of our Wildlands University, is a bilingual or Spanish crew leader training in ecological restoration. So that will be part of our field day on March 26th. So if you are fluent in Spanish, or you know anyone who would like to participate in that, we are continuing to grow the number of projects where we are either running them entirely in Spanish or are offering at least the opportunity where some crews are led in Spanish. And so yeah, that is a cool training that does require that prior skill of the language. We also have project photographers. So to Emma's question, the only requirement for that is our field day, which is going to be March 11th. There will be more details on the page about that, but that'll involve everything from talking about different cameras to use to actually taking a field trip out to our ecological restoration training and taking some photos out there, to talking about reviewing your photos and uploading them. And then the second component to that is just that we will either a experienced volunteer or staff member will provide you feedback after your first project, just as far as what we're looking for and what you submit for your photos. The diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings, both the intro and the having tough conversations, you do not have to be a leader to participate in those. It is a thing we ask for all of our leaders to participate in, but if you're signing up as a photographer or any of these other roles, you can still take those trainings, because we feel that the more people in our community are familiar with that, all of that, the better and more supported everybody is on our projects. Like I mentioned, we will also have a wilderness first aid and CPR training that will likely be scheduled sometime around May on a weekend when we do not have 5 other projects going on. We have a crosscut saw certification. There are usually 2 weekends for that, somewhere around late May into early June. There are some prerequisites for that. There is coursework that has to be done through the University of Montana online in order to actually go out for the field days. We have a chainsaw certification, which we do typically every year. I do not know the timing for that, but yeah, we also do training specifically in fire restoration. And so this could be a skill building thing. You don't have to be a leader to participate in that, but if you want to know more about methods in doing restoration of areas that have been burned by wildfires, you can participate in that. And we typically do an advanced rock work skills training, which again is a helpful supplement to being a trails crew leader, but is a thing that you can sign up for independently of your leader position. So why would you want to become a leader with us anyway? I hope that this picture is an example of one of our work sites, so that's pretty cool. But aside from that, put some fun transitions in here. Part of it is you get to choose your own adventure. So it is a very flexible in terms of the time commitment. Like I said, especially if you're coming from further away, you may only do like a couple projects in a season. But there are a variety of options to kind of meet, what you're interested in. So sometimes people will say, well, what do you need? And what we need are people who care about the leader role that they're training in and signing up for. Like, sure, we need lots of crew leaders, but if your passion is cooking food or more technical components, then we probably need you there more. There's a variety of ways you can get involved. So also really becoming a leader helps us to our community to grow and to further heal the land. So a big limiting factor on the number of projects and the quality of projects we can do is the number of quality volunteer leaders that we have. And along with that, yes, you get to build skills as well, obviously. Very helpful whether you are building them for your professional resume or you just like learning stuff about outdoors and restoration, or, you know, whatever the reason might be. We do, you know, have certifications, like I said, Outdoor Stewardship Institute, or OSI. Anyone who completes our crew leader training is a certified OSI crew leader. There are certifications that go with a lot of those skilled volunteer trainings as well, and they are things that can be recognized by partners across Colorado, some of them nationwide. It's also a great way to get access to popular projects. So I think of one example offhand. I ran a project at Summit Lake last year. It's a very popular one to get onto. There is always a lengthy wait list for crew members, and I was having to reach out to crew members to find crew leaders this past year because we had like 50 crew members signed up and we had like 2 or 3 crew leaders. That is not a great ratio. So it is a great way to get onto you know, projects that are maybe more popular, ones that fill up faster. Okay, so all that said, and I know it is 5 till 7, so we'll definitely answer whatever questions in the next 5 minutes, but if you have additional questions, I'm happy to stay on past 7 to talk with you and explore that. Also, if you want to just email questions to me, I will get back to you when I am able to. Real quick I will stop sharing my screen so that I can see people more, but I know one of the questions is often what's next. I will send a follow-up email tomorrow that'll include a link to this recording, as well as links to like our Wildlands University page. And yeah, next step would be if you're like, this sounds awesome, I know what I want to sign up for. All of the trainings are open for registrations right now. We do have a cap, like a group size limit on all of them, because we want to providing a quality experience to anyone who is training. So our goal is not to, like I said, get in just a large quantity of leaders. It's to be providing a good experience to you so that you can in turn provide that to volunteers who are involved with our projects. So if you're like, yeah, sounds great, you can go sign up for all of them right after this if you haven't already. Yeah, the first training, like I said, is going to be the Intro to Diversity, Equity, Inclusion online on Sunday, February 12th. I know people might ask, like, well, I'm not available that particular day. I pretty much said to contact me if you're not available, because we want people to be a part of that as much as possible. There is a lot of interactive discussion with that. That said, if you're like, I'm gonna be a leader, I just am like out of the country that day or something, or it's my birthday, whatever. We will have a recording that we can share with you, and then we'll have some questions for you to answer so that we can kind of like assess like, hey, I watched this, I understand what's being talked about. But regardless of whether you attend in person or watch the recording, we want that done prior to our Leadership 101 day, because we are building upon that training as part of that day. And so we want people coming in with that knowledge and experience. Yeah, and like I said, the Having Tough Conversations session that's up there. If you would like to, after our Leadership 101 day, if you're like, I feel like I need more practice with this stuff, there is going to be an online session. You're welcome to participate multiple times. Like, it is the type of thing that the more you do, like more repetition you have, the easier it becomes. And I'm speaking from the experience of it's not a thing I knew anything about or was familiar with prior to starting with WRV 2 years ago. And I don't think I'm an expert by any means, but I have practiced a lot now at this point with that. So that's my rambling, hoping to proactively answer questions. Yes, Anne-Marie.
So we had one question in the chat, which I actually thought might be easier not to type out, how projects come to us. So that is a very dynamic answer.
Yes.
Some of our projects come to us because agencies that we've been working with for several years will actually save projects for us. And then sometimes they will recommend us to other agencies. And so sometimes we'll get a phone call from someone that's like, hey, could you help us out? And then we kind of discuss what funding they have. You know, do we have a grant that could fund that? Sometimes we have large grants that are available. For instance, we got some large grants from State Farm and American Red Cross that was funding fire restoration on private lands. So we went out and we worked with our partner organizations like Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed, Calwood Education Center, the Big Thompson Coalition, to actually go and reach out and build on relationships that they already have with private landowners who are in these watersheds. So really it's all about us working with community and agency and business partners. And a lot of it is word of mouth. So if you're ever out there and you're talking to an agency and you know what we do, feel free to send them our way. Get a business card and call us. We definitely have volunteers who end up bringing connections to us that end up having projects come out, especially to the places that you love and that you go to recreate, you know, or to find your happy place out in the woods. And then if you are looking at the site, there's a lot of different trainings that we have up there. If you just want to check in with someone and say, hey, am I signed up for the right stuff? You can feel free to reach out to Adam. You can reach out to me. You can also email our info box, which is just info@wlrv.org, or call our office, press 1, and that just rings whoever's available on staff. All of our staff have taken this training. So we can all talk to you about what it is. So don't be shy, follow up with us later.
Yeah, awesome. Any other questions people have this evening? Cool. Yeah, looks like people are filling up, which makes sense. It is just after 7. So yeah, I will be very involved with the trainings. I'll be sending a lot of info your ways, and I will be there on Leadership 101 day and on the Ecological Restoration Field days. And we have an awesome project team and an awesome team of instructors who are going to be there to, you know, answer a lot of questions and to help you all learn whatever you want to know in any given role. So yeah, it's a really great organization. I love working here. I wouldn't, yes, I'm recording myself, but also I feel that way very much. So, yeah, I would say that off the record too. I'll stop recording. I think we've covered general.